My name is Yasmin Look from STL Partners, and I work with telecoms operators and other technology companies globally on how to tackle emerging challenges and opportunities, including in the topic of network APIs. And today I'm joined by three esteemed panelists from Deutsche Telekom, from Telekom Serbia, and from BT. And I'll start by a quick round to let the panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do in their organizations and their role in the context of network APIs. So, Marcus, I'll start with you.
Yes, good morning. So I'm happy to be part of this panel. So thanks a lot. My name is Markus Kümmerle. I'm working in the area technology and innovation within Deutsche Telekom. And I have the honor to lead a program which is called Magenta API Exposure. So it's the exposure program for the network APIs of the company since 3 years. And that's only my first head. I also won a second head during the time. It's Camara. It's the open source project, and yeah, I'm driving it, and hopefully can make it successful.
Perfect. Nectaria, you next, please.
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm Nectaria Efthimiou. I work in BT's network strategy team. And one of the activities I'm currently involved is the APIs, in particular around network APIs, which is the topic of your discussion today. Thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nectaria. And last but not least, George.
Hi, Yasmin. Thank you very much. Okay, my name is George Radovic. I am head of core network and services in Telekom Serbia, one of the biggest telco operator in Southeast Europe. I've been in the technology industry, for example, for more than 20 years, on many different managerial positions. Regarding APIs, because I'm in charge of end-to-end services, not only in mobile segment, but in fixed internet, satellite, multimedia, etc. in telecom portfolio. Okay. Including cloud infrastructure as well. We are doing a lot in these transformation segments when we are talking about the core networks, for example. So we are more than keen to understand the possibility of network APIs and try to maybe to enable the rest of the industry in order to tackle some hates together with us. And I'm more than happy to be a part of this panel. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm pretty sure that it will be a very fruitful discussion during the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Georgia. And I think you're right. You know, what we've been seeing is there's been a resurgence in interest in applications interfacing much more than networks they run over. And I think, you know, we had a conversation about this, and it's nothing particularly new, right? But there's this interest in greater network awareness and network instructability in applications. And, you know, going back to the title of the session, to unlock innovation and also just better outcomes for the end customers. So maybe just to set the scene a little bit here we're really talking about, you know, the network APIs and this promise of increased value capture, you know, for operators, for the wider ecosystem, for developers. And specifically here, you know, we're going to be focusing our discussion on northbound APIs, and specifically, as you mentioned to your point, Georgia, as well, more so on the mobile network APIs. And we would have seen the interest and focus was quite evident last year at MWC with you know, telco and wider industry executives majoring on, you know, GSMA, Open Gateway, and Camara. And maybe just to kick us off a little bit, since this time last year, Nectaria, maybe I'll start with you. What change have you seen in that demand for, you know, mobile network APIs and open network APIs, and more so on this interest in that network awareness or instructability?
Okay, let me try to unpack a little bit the demand. How do we realize demand, right? So when we talk for demand, we assume there is a use case or an application that is enabled by capability. The capability exists, and it can be consumed easily by customers. And there is a commercial model and a broader API monetization strategy in this particular case. So if we look then the demand for the mobile APIs, and then if we say the capability is there, the 5G networks are fundamentally software-based, rich in capability, and their capabilities like improving or enabling end-to-end quality and providing end-to-end quality for networks, edge capability, and other future enhancements that they will come. So the capability is there, and today we have APIs to expose the capability. Now let's look at the use cases and unpack this a little bit more. What we have seen over the last few years from the activities of the CSPs with verticals and customers and the digital services that they enabled on those mobile networks, telecoms networks, we can say that our customers broadly, they understand the value of the telco network. And in some cases, they can identify specific use cases that can be enabled by connectivity. But majority of them, they have challenges or opportunities they want to address, but they don't necessarily know, or they need to know that how the mobile network can enable those use cases. Now, with the APIs, they have the flexibility to consume the network resources to enable those use cases, but it will not be them. It will be the developers or the partners or the developer ecosystem that potentially will take this API, this capability from the network to deliver the use cases that the customer needs to enable. So effectively, what we see that the developers are the catalyst. They sit in the middle, and they are the catalyst to enable, to unlock this opportunity for network APIs. But if you ask the developers today whether they understand APIs for telcos, 3/4 of them, they will tell you they don't understand. Okay? So one of the challenges then is how can we make these APIs more available and easy for a non-telco person to understand what is the capability that we are actually providing and what this capability can do for them. So standardization plays a role here, and harmonization of the way we expose these APIs definitely is going to help. And over the last 12 months, we've seen a lot of activity, and especially with Camara and with others, to standardize those APIs. And of course, the next important factor in this demand question is the monetization and the commercial model. And what we saw in the last 12 months is we saw that the industry is on an exploration journey. We saw a lot of partnerships, a lot of announcements for POCs. We saw portals and inviting developers to join. And also we saw new players coming in, not necessarily from telco, but they see as an opportunity for them to expand and include telco APIs. And also we saw telco players expanding and start expanding their portfolio and start offering APIs platforms. So there has been quite a lot of activity over the last 12 months in this exploration journey. Where is the demand? How can we enable these use cases? How can we make them, how this capability can be translated easier so the customers and developers can understand, and what the commercialization models will be. Regarding BT, we have actually our activities over the last 12 months, and we are working to meet the requirements for that. And that actually aligns to the standardization. And also we have signed an MOU with Nokia, and that covers the utilization of network as a code platform from Nokia, and the developer portal for with BT's cloud native network. And we also launched our global fabric platform to enable the flexible and consumption of network resources. So to summarize your question, the demand is there. We just need to find a way of explaining how we can actually meet this demand with our capabilities. and realize this and with the right commercialization model.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great summary as well. And I've been writing some of the points you mentioned, that capability is there, especially as operators are moving towards 5G, more softwareized, cloudified networks and, more dynamic in nature anyway. But part of it is, developers don't ask for, hey, I want this API. They want an outcome that is enabled by an API. And there's still an education piece there too. And it sounds like part of that is also this exploration to understand, okay, well, what are the potential commercial models? And there's no simple answer and, one silver bullet of a commercial model, right? It sounds like.
Yes, that's right.
Great. And Georgia, I'm going to get your thoughts on what you're seeing in terms of that demand and also that awareness, by the developer community that you're seeing.
Yes, of course. I will try to wrap up maybe in very, very short period of time, meaning that I think that the main role of telco is changing a lot. And this is something that is very, very important to say during this panel as well, because I think that in this form of telco operator, I think that they will disappear in the following period. Okay, and they have to be aware how to transform their way of doing business, not only way of doing business, but their way of thinking, I suppose. Okay, in order to become more attractive. Okay, so what does it mean? I think that the magic word today is ecosystem. Because it means that you have to find a way how to deal with some kind of cross-correlation between developers world and telco or infrastructure world, for example. It's still, I suppose, two different concepts, okay, in mindset. So you need to find a way how to make some kind of synergy, not only to sum up both those worlds in order to create something additional, but I think that you have to create some kind of synergy in order to create something new business model, new outcomes, or something like that. When we are talking about the last 12 months, I can say that maybe we can see here a lot of demand for network APIs, and I can maybe mention some kind of several trends from my point of view are pretty noteworthy. Okay. We had adoption of something that is called GraphQL. GraphQL has gained the popularity as an alternative to well-known REST APIs, for example, for fetching and manipulating data. But something that is very important to say here, we are witnesses of those network APIs which are pretty optimized, meaning that GraphQL, it's not strictly network API. They try to simplify data fetching and allows clients on the other side to request only the data they need. So I suppose that this is the answer to your question, what the developers really want. They want something specific, so you can put it through, I don't know, maybe GraphQL as in some kind of new network API or something like that. Something that is very important to say here, and I'm really fan of this, it means that we can see a rise of service meshes. Okay, service mesh technologies like, I don't know, maybe Istio, it's open source, and Linker, when we are talking about microservices containerization as well, have gained traction for managing communication between microservices within distributed applications. So we are not talking about some kind of monolith application. We are talking about distributed application. If you have some kind of distribution, you have to be very aware that your flow is secure. So today we can say that we can see a lot of shift towards edge computing. I don't know, I work for telco, for example, and nowadays you can see that hyperscalers think that in the upcoming period, completely all infrastructure of the telco will be somewhere in the public clouds. Okay, in that way, we can see that we have to analyze a lot of network APIs towards well-known clouds like, I don't know, AWS or Azure or something like that. So something that we can see as well, we have to develop together some kind of new use cases and it means cross collaboration between different industries. Okay, we are witnesses that we have nowadays connected vehicles. Can you say that it's a separate industry? It's combination, it's synergy between, I don't know, telco, automotive industry, a lot of different areas as well. And something for the end, maybe regarding 5G. I think that rollout of 5G all around the world will have a big impact of innovation when we are talking about innovation in this network AP domain, because with 5G, we introduce low latency, high bandwidth, edge computing integration, network slicing. With 5G introduces the concept of network slicing, allowing operators to partition their network into infrastructure, into virtualized slice, tailored to specific use cases or customers. And something that we can see here, from our perspective, we can see a lot of potential in this B2B segment, because we try to educate a lot of our business customers in order to create, again, something new. That way, we have very couple of different interesting projects in healthcare, for example, because we saw that we can have those network APIs not only as a product, but as an enabler for some other industries as well.
Yeah. And that's fascinating because, to your earlier point as well, this is sort of this notion that, hey, actually, the network is just another, domain, if you will, in terms of how you can expose some of those capabilities. And there are APIs or extraction of certain data sources or information from all sorts of systems. The network is just another area. And it's to figure out, okay, well, what does that mean then, or how can you make it as easy as possible for the end customer, whether it's a developer or an enterprise IT developer, for example, to consume that. I just want to go towards your point as well around sort of that level of dynamic nature, if you will. And we'll go to that when we talk about things like edge as well, right? The ability to distribute, those workloads intelligently to where they need to be in order to minimize latency, for example. And we'll talk a little bit about that around, if it's an enabler or if it's something that you provide as a product, if you will. I just wanted to go to Marcus and get your thoughts, because obviously, Deutsche Telekom has been a big proponent and big sort of a pioneer in the space in many ways. And you've been very vocal about sort of that need for the ecosystem to come together. What are your thoughts on, I guess, progress that you've seen from an ecosystem perspective, and also in that exploration journey as well with partners, with customers?
Yeah, well, when we started, I think 3 years ago, and we were on Mobile World Congress 22, we were nearly alone with the topic. So we had this first proof of concept with BMW, with the automated valet parking. So we controlled the car remotely in a parking garage using 5G and our APIs. And it was a great topic, but it was not very visible at that time. It was very innovative. Comparing it to the last year's Mobile World Congress 2023, there the topic has been at nearly all the booths. It was one of the large topics, and even in the evening when I traveled through the Barcelona metro, I heard people speaking about network APIs and Camara, and so it gets a traction, which is really, really great. And this year you will see it will be even more. So the ecosystem is really growing. And that's great. But on the other side, we should be really clear that the current APIs are very technical still. So they are focusing only on certain aspects like optimization of the run, like edge cloud. But the end customers, the developers, need different things. So they don't want to bother about run and edge cloud. They simply want to come to us and tell us, look, improve my connection and my whole business case, that I have the best latency and a stable connection and the best bandwidth. And it's on our side what we can do to achieve this. So that means we should optimize the device itself. So in the chipsets that we have a low latency on the device, we can use then our optimization of the RAN. We can use all the technologies we can use slicing, low latency slices. We can use prioritization in the run. But we also have to look at the back end. So we should have a look where does the data leave the mobile infrastructure and goes to the internet. So that is traffic influence, and bring this data connection to the best place, and not statically. So it's not the closest one. It's dynamically to see where is the where it should not be overloaded. So it's a dynamic thing. And then you're looking in the internet. You have the fixed line optimization. You have to do the whole edge cloud thing. So bring the application closest to that exchange point. Even if you have some devices in a local Wi-Fi network, you have to do the optimization there via the router, and putting all together creates the value for the customer. What he really wants. He wants to have low latency, and so we only have one puzzle part of the whole thing. We have to work together with the customers now to get a demand and to create the best APIs. And I see the current APIs as an enabler to come together with the developers and to get a real demand and start working on the real APIs, which create the value and which we then can monetize.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting as well, because a part of the panel session name I realized was the word open, right? And that is important, because this is just a small puzzle piece out of everything that enables that end customer outcome that they're looking for. What are your thoughts then on sort of that impact of standardization so far, with initiatives like Camara and with GSMA Open Gateway?
Well, I think it's necessary. It's really necessary to standardize it. As we have done the first test with BMW, they told us great functionality, but we only build it in our cars if it's also available in the networks of the other players in Germany. And our cars have a very bad ability that can drive across borders. So it should also work in France and in Italy and Spain, in all the countries, and in the US. So standardization is really key. And that we realized very fast, and then reached out to the others and see if we can do a partnership there and build something. And out of that idea, Camara was created. So the open source project, which combines, I think, several pillars. The one, it's a global standardization. The second, we want to be on an intent-based level, so not expose the technical level, but be on exactly this intent-based level. And number 3, do standardization via code. So telcos typically have the way that they create a standardization organization and then take 3 or 5 years to create some papers and then start implementing. If we do that way, the market is gone. So we do it differently in Camara. We create standardization via code. And I think we are very successful. We launched it 22. And now if I look to the figures, Camara has grown to more than 300 companies, more than 930 people in Camara, and the same people I'm in contact to join Camara. So it's growing day by day, and that shows up we are on the right way with it.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, I know you mentioned before, obviously, that you've recently signed sort of this MOU then with Camara, and also are doing work with Nokia as well. How important do you see that ecosystem cohesion and alignment to really address some of the things that you mentioned earlier around sort of that scaling, that education, bringing the developer community with us?
So the question is for me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. So regarding the ecosystem, I think we've got to think, as Marcus said, there is a turning point, maybe an inflection point, if you like, for the industry, right? And we come to realize that we have networks, and we are very good in specifying, in designing, deploying, and selling those networks for the traditional services. But if you look the industry reports, they say that from 50% to 82% of the 5G value is not yet realized, which means that as an industry, we need to change the way we try to monetize those networks. So we need to, and actually what we saw over the last 12 months, there is a lot of activity in trying as an industry to collaborate with other players in order to understand how we can expose those capabilities to add value to our customers and, of course, monetize them with the right model. Now, the developer ecosystem is, as I said earlier, is the catalyst of actually this making happen. And and Marcus already said, and George, we need to make sure that the developer does not need to know the complexity our networks they carry, and we don't need to know necessarily all the things that they need to do. What we need to have in the middle, if you like, a translation between the telco language to what the users and the developers need. And we have to have the right toolkits for them to be able to start using those platforms. So the ecosystem is very important because, and the value of the ecosystem is how easily they can enable the developers to use in order to increase the adoption and potentially bring scale into the propositions. So it has to have an easy journey for the developer, and it has to have the right toolkits, but also the toolkits that the developers today, they're used to work with, rather than we are going and introduce new things into how they have to do. So I do believe is very important, and I don't think anybody has the answer yet. But if we look at what has happened in other industries and with other verticals in terms of the ecosystem development, and actually STL has done a very good analysis in terms of the ecosystems, right? So if I borrow some of your highlights on this analysis, the successful ecosystems, they had 4 ingredients. So the first one is the intent. So whatever we do, it has to have a purpose. It has to add value to our customers. So the intent and the value the ecosystem delivers is very important. So we need to think about that. Then the timing. So it has to come at the right time. And as we said earlier, and the others, this is a good time because the capability is there, the customers and the users, they are aware about using flexibly consuming network resources from the fixed world, because there has been a lot of things happening there. So there is a kind of already, they know what it is. APIs are available for years, so it's not something new. And so the timing is right, but it has also to come not only the right time, it has to achieve the right scale as well, in order to be able to capitalize on the network effect. Otherwise, the monetization strategy, if you like, will be weak, and we have seen ecosystems that they come strong and then they fail. But also, it has to have a vision, so it has to evolve constantly, so we cannot, and what we have seen is we have seen ecosystems that actually are evolving. They're looking what is happening, they introduce new partners, new capabilities, and they're evolving together with the customers, and the users of those ecosystems are the more successful. And the final part, I think, that the ecosystem also needs to bring into that is the differentiation. Why? And again, we don't know how the ecosystems will be in the next few years for the telco APIs. There may be several, there may be one, there may be different. But whatever it is, this ecosystem has to have a differentiation. Why it is good? What is the different thing that brings into that? And this is also going back to the standardization, and maybe some discussions is that this standardization bringing differentiation. Standardization, I personally think, is going to bring scale, and is going to make, if the standards and the APIs are easy to use and understandable, and they explain what actually the capability bring to the use case. So if the standards are defined like that, they will bring scale. But maybe for some cases, some players may decide to differentiate, providing some capabilities differently. And again, the time only will show how this will evolve. But I do believe the ecosystem is the core of that, and the developers, I will say it again, are the catalyst for this to happen. We should not forget them. They are very important in the ecosystem.
And I love that. So I just wrote down here, it's the vision, the timing, and the scale that all really need to, converge and come together in that sense. And I want to talk a little bit about, all three of you now, I think, mentioned sort of this importance of, intent-based APIs. And, I heard things that mentioned around simplicity, but at the same time, making sure that we're moving from a very static world in the past to now something that's a little bit more dynamic. And Georgia, I want to get your thoughts on this because, how important do you see tools like, AI-based automation and also cloud-native networking in enabling this sort of full dynamic on-demand nature of how, network services might be consumed?
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you very much for this question, because I think that the topic of AI is very important, not only in our segment, in our industry, of course, but worldwide, as we can see here. But I think that we are, how can I say, we are we live in a time where the disruption is very important word, for example. So I think that this is what happens in telco industry, is some kind of disruption point, and maybe somebody has to hit the spark. So when we are talking about two different worlds, I think that we have to hit the spark from our side to developer side and vice versa, in order to create, as you mentioned, for example, something new. I will give some kind of examples when we are talking about interoperability between industries, because I think this is a huge room for improvement when we are talking about network APIs and dynamic approach, etc. For example, healthcare providers nowadays can securely exchange patient data with insurance companies through network APIs and medical device manufacturers using standardized, for example, APIs for data interoperability. Nowadays, we are talking about smart cities. Nowadays, we are talking about Internet of Things without any kind of human touch. So we are talking about some completely new dynamic when we are talking about the communication as well. So smart cities can integrate data from various different systems. I don't know, traffic sensors, weather stations, public transportation, etc., and try to optimize urban planning and improve quality of life, etc. So this ecosystem is very important, and I think that when we are talking about artificial intelligence, we have to split and try to be very distinctive between two very general terms: automation and autonomy. So today we can see that a lot of companies, not only telco providers, but a lot of companies invest in some kind of automation based on digital transformation or some different processes that they started inside. So when we are talking about doing some kind of repetitive tasks more efficiently, we are talking about the automation. But I think that nowadays is very important to understand the potential of generative AI in order to create completely new content and try to be trustworthy party when we are talking about this cooperation. So meaning that launching AI through a network API can lead to some kind of automation, but something more important, I think it leads to some kind of autonomy. When we are talking about the autonomy, it means that we will have to change our approach to decision-making process. So we have to trust, I don't know, maybe the systems, maybe some kind of machines, and this ecosystem in order to create some kind of specific decision in that field. And yes, we can see that the whole market inclines to that direction, but there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown. For example, ocean, I suppose, and something that you have to be aware. You have to jump in and try to swim. Okay, so in that way, I think that in this collaboration, as Nectaria mentioned, for example, between completely many different worlds, lays a golden key.
And that's interesting as well, because as we start to, it's relatively early days at the moment, but, there is a future where there could be, let's say, a little bit more like, preemptiveness to understand, okay, well, this is how I see the trends in terms of what this application or, this application needs. Therefore, can I preempt, what they could or be able to plan, as we mentioned, from the network point of view, what they might need as well in the future to be able to scale and not have, let's say, certain bottlenecks, constrain that ability.
Yeah.
I just want to go to some other points that we mentioned as well, really around, I think, that demand and those use cases. Marcus, I want to get your thoughts on, have there been any particular, let's say, surprises or certain use cases that you're seeing that, demand come from, and, specific APIs? If you could cite any examples, I think that would be great.
So I think a lot of questions for the customers are going towards prediction. So, for example, I'm driving on a road, and I have my navigation system telling me where I have to drive and how the network will behave in 3 kilometers, in 5 kilometers, and 10 kilometers. Where I am heading towards an empty place where I have a lack of connectivity, and a lot of questions are around prediction. And we also want to use artificial intelligence to create a best answer for it. So you can use, to be sure, you can use the live data, but it's only a part of it because the network changes and you have to predict how it will change in the next couple of minutes and hours. And for that, you need the historic data. So you use artificial intelligence to create the best prediction and provide this functionality then for the customers. And a lot of questions are coming around that. So that's one very big topic. It's from the automotive industry, but you can also see different industries who have the same issues. So drone companies, for example, are asking, and it's even more difficult because then you have a third dimension. So it's not the network at zero level. It's then going up into 100 meters, 200 meters, 500 meters, and do the prediction there. That's even more complex with that. And you have to combine it also with location information because it's not allowed to fly in all areas. And for that, you have to make sure that it's kept. So it's a lot of interesting questions which we get, and we are working with the customers in the moment to create new APIs for that.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same in some of the primary research we've done with the developer community. A lot of that is at the moment, we just really need that visibility to be able to make better informed decisions on how, our application is going to work, and whether it's, the status or the quality of the network connection, whether it's where is that, as you mentioned in the drone use case, where is that being connected today, or what's the exact, precise location of that, more so, like more accuracy than maybe what GPS can provide, for example. I'm just aware of time as well. I want to get some thoughts on perhaps some of the challenges or the barriers. Nectaria, what have been some of the primary challenges that you've been seeing? You mentioned a little bit around, the monetization, the commercial models. Are you seeing the challenges more like commercial, or are they more technical in nature?
Right. I think because this is early stages, we need to be careful not to be paralyzed by the fear of difficulties and challenges. But so the way I would phrase it is more about how we can enable the opportunities I mentioned earlier about the ecosystem. So the ecosystem, and this is technical in terms of how we can expose the network capabilities, and the developers can use it and consume them in a way that they understand. So there is a scope there to to translate, if you like, the telco language to something else. And also the ecosystem, the commercial model, and the monetization strategy of those APIs, how this will evolve. This is one part. The other part is around the points Georgie and Marcus mentioned about the network flexibility. So, and I think traditionally, the way we do we do products and we deliver use cases, we look end to end and we do one thing that does something at the end. Now we are moving into a new dimension, if you like. We want to have the flexibility in the network to enable a capability that can be used for different use cases. So the network should have this capability to be able to use, for example, in this case, quality of demand that can be used across different services, not just for one specific. So this capability and how the networks can evolve, if you like, to become more flexible, programmable, using AI, but also and AI techniques like machine learning or LLM models, for example, to make the interaction with the network more customized and user-friendly. So all these things are things where we need to think. I don't see them as challenges as we have to solve them now to do this API monetization. It's something where we need to think and create a roadmap, if you like, how we can move the networks from where they are today to the networks of the future that can be programmable, flexible, and they can expose those capabilities to be used as tools that someone else will use to enable a use case. So we move from this end-to-end monolithic product design to more flexible network capability exposure for others to use and for us to monetize and realize the value of our networks better.
And to sort of sum that up as well, I mean, Georgia, what would you say your key focus areas are for the team in this next year? I love a good little reflection and to think about, the next 2024, if you will.
Yeah, of course. Well, okay. I'm mainly present in this Southeast Europe part of the world, for example, and maybe I can reflect from this point of view what can be done, for example, locally and thinking globally, for example, yeah. So I think that we try, and of course my company as well, we started some kind of investment fund supporting some startups in order to create, I suppose, some new unicorn in this part of the world, for example. So meaning that promoting collaboration and partnership, I think it's very important in that area, and we will focus in that way as well. As a telecom provider, we invested a lot in infrastructure, primarily in fiber and 5G, in order to support digital transformation, not only in telco segment, but across the whole industry, different industries as well. Something that I can see that we can continue, of course, as well, to support developer communities. As Nectaria said, I think that we have to find some kind of mutual interest with developers as well, because this part of the world can be very attractive for outsourcing companies as well. It means that you code everything, but you don't create some kind of new value, from my point of view, including business as well. And something that is very personal, because I'm one of the founder and a member of Serbian AI Society. We started some very interesting non-profit organization called Serbian AI Society in order to support those intentions in this part of the world and try to communicate with the rest of the world as well, based on those specific projects. So it means that we try to promote maybe some kind of new use cases, some kind of success stories, and in order to attract the rest of the people to this from this community. So in this society, we try to serve as a hub for AI enthusiasts, researchers, professionals, policymakers in Serbia, especially to exchange ideas organize different events, promote different initiatives, and I suppose it will lead to some standardization maybe in this area as well, in order to create more ethical society, for example, and try to develop a lot of new business outcomes in this area. So this will be, I suppose, in a nutshell, what we will continue to do in the upcoming period, and I suppose we can discuss maybe next year more about some possible results in that area.
Great, look forward to that. And Marcus, final thoughts on your key focus areas for this year?
Yeah, so I would answer it for the ecosystem, I think, and there are two important points which we should address. The one, we have to show the first revenues and really have a proof that we can make business with it. That's one very important part. The second is it's the coverage in the market. So we have to show the customer how this seamless access can work. So we need aggregation. And I think we are addressing both. We have launched a portal in a partnership with Vonage last year. So we have commercially launched the first APIs. We are using the whole developer ecosystem of Vonage. The million developers there have a Magenta-paid part of Vonage for our APIs, and also doing the aggregation for the market with Vonage. We are working with the other operators in Germany to have a complete coverage there. So we are addressing all the topics and see to move forward with that.
Perfect. And finally, Victoria, what are your key focus areas for this year?
So just following up on the discussion we had, it's about understanding the ecosystem development, the partnership models, working with more partners and exploring more options. In terms of the technical element, as I said, focusing on how we can make in the future those networks more flexible and programmable is where probably one of the themes, if you like, that coming in this year.
Perfect. No, really looking forward to seeing, what happens in the next year.